The World Matchplay almost here. When this episode drops, just 2 days away, we've got the world's top 16. The next top 16 players on the Pro Tour over the last 12 months are going to be competing for that Phil Taylor Trophy. And 19 of those 32 players, a quick head count, have won a PDC major in the past. A few more have won majors in other codes and other big titles. So is this the strongest Blackpool lineup ever?
It seems like we ask this almost every year, and almost every year I say the answer is yes. I think there was a backstep for a couple of years in 2020, 2021 because of the pandemic and it just messing up the qualification schedule. I mean, there was other than one Euro Tour event right before lockdown, or no other Euro Tours in the lead up to the 2021. And then in 2021, both of the Euro Tours were in the back end of the year. So you had a weird situation where players had qualified through the Pro Tour almost exclusively based on their floor performances, not based on how they had done in those mini majors of the European Tour. Although we'll come on later to the show about the various tiers of majors, not to give away what we'll be talking about later. But, for those 2 years, because the qualification system was a bit out of whack due to the pandemic, due to the cancellation or postponement of almost all of the European Tour events, I think the fields for those years, I'm not going to say they were weaker, but they were less prepared for the World Matchplay. And there were some players that had the ability to sneak in that might not have snuck in had there been the full complement of 13 Euro Tours, or at least like this year, 10 before the cutoff date, although still some from the end of last year are on the Pro Tour Order of Merit for this year still. So that obviously was a couple years where the quality of the field might not have been as high, although obviously the World Matchplay behind closed doors ended up being a pretty good tournament nonetheless. But now we are back in the full swing of things, and we've had a full normal qualification year for this. We're almost back to what the cutoff was in 2019. I think 2019 was a little over 40,000. This year was a little under 40,000. I think that, though, is mostly because it's harder to win as much money because there are so many players who are playing so well. Just getting to European Tour events is difficult, let alone winning a match or winning 2 matches, winning 3 matches on that stage, winning your board in players' championships, even as a seed, or even making the board final as a seed, is becoming rarer and rarer because there's so many players who aren't in the seeds to take that off of you, to take an early match off of you. And therefore, it's the amount needed to qualify is a bit lower, but the amount of talent, the amount of skill, the amount of form keeps going up. Brendan Dolan is the second to last player into this field. He made a semifinal on Monday in the Players' Championship events. Steve Beaton was able to sneak his way back in, but he made a final at the back end of last year. He's qualified for half the Euro Tour events and has won at least a match at every single one of them. And even still, that just barely got him into the field. Mike DeDecker, he in the end was a bit comfortable making his first final earlier this year, but he's been playing brilliantly, not just this year, but at the back end of last year, still only just got him in. It's become so difficult to qualify for this event, and you have to be playing at a really high level for a significant amount of time. You could back your way in. I think Kim Huybrechts backed his way in. He's not playing as well the last couple months as he was earlier in the year. Stephen Bunting, similarly. But you can't back your way through 12 months. You have to put together 6, 7, 8 months where you're playing really well. And that's what these players have done. They've all had prolonged spells where they've been playing at a top 16 level, even if they're not right now. And there are players who had similar spells that didn't manage to qualify. Simon Whitlock was playing well at the end of last year, made a final first in a few years at the beginning of this year. He ended up falling short by £2,500. Luke Woodhouse just made his first finals, been one of the emergent players this year. He fell shy by nearly £5,000. It's just almost impossible to qualify for this event now. And as we said last week, in the end, we have 30 of the top 31 players in the world. Only 2 from outside the top 32 qualified, Mike DeDecker and Steve Beaton. I think this is the best field. because of just how good the players who didn't manage to qualify are and how well some of them are playing. It's only going to get tougher to qualify from here. I think the answer almost every year to this question will be yes, because the quality of darts keeps getting better. This might be the last time in years that we don't see Sean Van Veen in the field, and I'm sure he's not the only person who will be in next year and next 5 years after that who couldn't qualify this year, because it's just that hard to qualify.
Yeah, Xian was a name I was going to mention as well for the answer to this question. But when you talk about the strongest Blackpool lineup ever, for me, I immediately think of one of the weekends that I've spent in Blackpool, an afternoon sat on the pier, terrace bar, listening to a band with acoustics singing some covers at Pirates Bay. You had Desperados on tap, which was pretty dangerous. But in terms of the darts lineup for Blackpool, this is the 30th World Matchplay. It is a tournament which is one of the most prestigious on the calendar. And for me, I'd put it in my three that I most look forward to each year, alongside the World Cup and the UK Open. And what about the World Championship? Well, of course, I look forward to that. Dartsmas every Christmas, but 96 players, what is it now, 28 sessions? That's too much darts for me. And I know there's a lot of the event that I'm probably not going to watch because of work and other things going on around that year. But the match play, 9 days, 32 players, the 32 best players in the world. You might, as you touched on there, you might take a few of those out and replace them with other names who are in better form right now. You could make a case for Gian Van Veen. I'd put in Berry Van Peer as well. These two players are top of the development tour and challenge tours at the moment, but you might put them in the 32 best in the world on current form at the moment. But I think you're going to get that every year. I think you're going to get players who maybe hit form at the start of a calendar year, halfway through the qualification period to get into this World Match Play, if you're one of the Pro Tour qualifiers. And in Berry's case, you might have a bad week at Q School and you have to build your form back up through other tours and getting into Pro Tour events as a top-up player, which makes it even more difficult to get into this tournament. So I think for me, the lineup, it's got to be the strongest because, as I mentioned, 19 of the 32 players knows what it takes to win a major in the PDC. And looking at the 13 that haven't done that yet, 6 of them have made finals, 3 of them have won majors in the BDO in the past. So other events, not as big a stature these days, but still pretty big events to win. And that leaves you with 4 players. And you mentioned one of them, Mike Videca, probably the most unknown quantity in that 32. But if you followed the Pro Tour, you know that he's a dangerous player. And I think the more stage time he gets, we had him on the show last week, the more time he gets up on that stage, the more he's going to get adjusted to it. And could be this week that he gets that first breakthrough on TV and gets a scalp. But he's a player that's making some strides. You've got Josh Rock in there, a debutant in the field like Mike Videca, but someone that we've seen make some huge strides in the last 18 months. And the other 2 players, Martin Schindler, similar to Mike Videca, but with more TV experience behind him. We know what he can do. And Gabriel Clemens, the last of those players, a World Championship semi-finalist just 6 months ago. So a lot of quality in there, a lot of quality in those 19 winners. Some aren't coming into this event in the best of form. Fair to say, Peter Wright, the number 2 seed, being the prime example, not playing the best starts of his career, but he's one of many names in that field that you look at and go, he's got the quality, he's got the game to win this tournament. He's one of the former winners of this event. And for me, I think because of that, on paper, this is the strongest lineup we've got. The strength in depth in the PDC, we talk about it all the time, but this field that we've got for the match play, it's a testament to that. And yeah, I just can't wait to watch it and see how it all unfolds now.